And welcome everybody to another edition of the Cripple Connection podcast. My name is Cody Lashley. I'm your host, along with my man, my partner in crime, Jeffrey Redmond. Jeffrey, what's going on, dude?
Hey, Cody, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Another Saturday, another podcast, man. And we have some fun things to talk about today. But if you like what Jeffrey and I do, or you're just finding us, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us to be seen by as many people as possible. And that is about all for the morning notes, man. Jeffrey, let's get into this, dude. We had some news that pops off. And listen, a little inside baseball here. Every time me and Jeffrey come to do this show, especially when it's like a slow news week, a lot of times we really don't figure out what the show is until the day of the show. And we think we figured out a pretty good one here today. But Jeffrey, let's start out and talk about this. There was a whole lot of news surrounding what is now essentially the biggest game developer in the world, in Epic Games, removing Fortnite from the App Store. And oh my, is this a story?
Yeah.
Jeffrey, I'm gonna kind of let you give your initial thoughts and feelings on this, and then we'll play some of the video and read some of the official comments from both sides.
So officially, for people who kind of are wondering what we're talking about, so with Apple, you have the App Store where you have to go in, and download all your apps. Same thing for Google. They have the Google Play Store. It's essentially the same thing. Well, whenever anything is published on that store, the company in charge takes a percentage of the profits. Basically, Epic Games, the creators of Fortnite, it started when they were offering, I believe it was a discount on all their in-game items, and people on mobile, playing on their iPads or their phones or whatever, couldn't take advantage of that sale because of the hike up because of what, the consumer has to pay to these companies. So essentially, they weren't able to take part in the sales. And basically, I can actually see both sides to this.
So let's kind of delve into it a little bit for people who don't know. So Epic Games is suing both Apple and Google for removing Fortnite from the App Store. Well, I mean, this is where it gets into a big deal. I'm reading this from evostrix.com. The move escalates the dispute between the companies that has been brewing over the recent weeks. The issue stems after a long-standing Apple App Store rule that states the apps must offer billing through Apple and pay them 30% of revenue. Now, this is the crazy shit to me. I've never heard any of this. And as soon as I heard it, I'm like, whoa, that's kind of gross, right? Like, 30% of revenue just because you're on the Apple App Store? Like, it's a weird situation when you're having to choose and fight between billion-dollar corporations here. I mean, it's not like any of these guys are the little guy. But, I do kind of initially find myself kind of being like, well, should I get behind Epic Games because of this? Like, are they really kind of fighting the man? Epic Games really seems to think that they have. Epic Games has been offering customers a way to directly buy items for Fortnite on Thursday, so as they could circumvent the fees. Just hours later, Apple pulled the app off their App Store, and Google did the same shortly after. And I wanted to share this real quick for all of our viewers. One of the most famous advertisements of all time, really, has been the Apple 1984 commercial. And then very swiftly after Apple pulled Fortnite from the store, Fortnite then goes and puts out this.
Yeah, this is hilarious.
I'm actually going to play it.
For years they have given us their sons, their labor, their dreams. In exchange, we have taken our tribute, our profits, our control. This power is ours.
I love
Fortnite,
it.
dude. So
I love it, man.
I mean, listen,
Ugh.
I love a good fight. You know, I don't
Right.
mind when things have to you know, come down to this. Listen, man. My thing is this. Upon reading this article, you really come to learn how much money is being made off of Fortnite, and it's like to the tune of 38. Where was the official number here? So it was something like 32.8 billion. Yeah, okay. Fortnite has made more than 350 million players over the years, according to the lawsuit, and removing the app from the App Store means losing access to more than 1 billion iPhone and iPad customers. According to Sensor Tower, sales to the App Store made 3.28 billion for Epic Games in the first half of 2020, which is 20% more than what it made the year earlier. So I don't have my calculator on me right now, but I don't know what 30% of $32.8 billion is.
Right.
I'm assuming that it is a fuckload of cash. So
Yes.
they've both been profiting off of each other, and I kind of see it like if you're Epic Games, they're taking too much of a piece of the pie. And even similarly, grievance over the fees Apple charges developers have reached a boiling point now after developers claiming for years about Apple's 15% to 30% fees for the App Store. CEO Tim Cook was recently grilled over this issue at the U.S. congressional hearing alongside technological chiefs. The article later goes on to say that Spotify instigated the EU's investigation of Apple, which apparently that's a thing also, and they applauded Epic's suit against Apple. So we're basically talking about some billion-dollar organizations that are saying, no, you make too much money. No, you make too much money. It's
which is
really
why I
kind
find
of
the
crazy.
whole thing kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because I mean, and I hate to be the monopoly guy, but think about it from Google and from Apple's point of view. Why would they allow something on their platform if they aren't going to get some kind of revenue for it? Now, granted, that revenue might be a little high in terms of percentage, but it's like that happens with every single. Think about it. Like, you can't tell me that the PlayStation Network and the Xbox Live service don't do the same damn thing with their stuff. I'm sure some of it is hiked up and some of it is taken by the company, even when it's not their particular property. So, and I mean, I don't have any real numbers to back this up. I'm sure I could look into them, but every company does this, man. I will say that 30% is a little egregious, but if you're not going to make any money off of something that you're hosting on your store, like that's not feasible. But
Right.
like, I see both sides, so it's really weird. But like you said, they're all billion-dollar companies anyway, so who really gives a shit in the end? But whatever. I don't know, man. I really don't know.
Yeah, and another thing that's, I guess, to play devil's advocate here, kind of looking at Apple and Google's side, like so much of your access to those customers is because you are on the Apple App Store. It's because you're on the Google Play Store. And really, it takes a behemoth like Epic Games, who has this crazy amount of capital and cash and a continuing fan base and players that support the game and the company, that it takes someone like them to be able to do something like this. And from a perspective of, dude, if I'm Epic, why do I want to pay you billions of dollars that is technically my money? I mean, think about it. If you had a game as popular as Fortnite, then imagine what you could then do with that money. And again, they're not hurting for cash, but this might pave. So think of it this way: not everyone is Epic Games. So yeah, Epic may have the capital and the ability to do this, but what if you're kind of on the rise and you just start making money and you're starting to try and grow and build your business, and then you have Apple taking 30% off of what you make just because you're on their app store? Like, the more that I talk through this, the more that I continue to run by this, I actually do think Epic Games is doing a good thing for people. I mean, yes, Epic is now huge because of the success of Fortnite and games that they've made in the past. But, dude, think of how... dude, we're talking about Apple and Google here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're literally fighting the man. Like, nope, you're talking about two of the biggest corporations in the entire world. Seemingly being taken to task. And apparently there's a bunch of other people that are on Epic's side, including big businesses like Spotify. The EU was investigating Apple. Like, the more that I continue to say these things out loud, the more I'm like, well, yeah, dude, fuck Apple, fuck Google. I'm for Epic on this matter. I think until I see something otherwise, because that article did say that Epic, they gave a 20% discount. They were already giving out. So it says right here, Epic Games told their customers on Thursday that they would begin offering a direct purchase plan for items in Fortnite instead of paying fees to Apple and Google. They would pass on savings to customers. Epic Games offered discounts of as much as 20% through its services. So even if you're a player of these games, you're a fan of this too, because it means that you get to buy cool new shit for cheaper.
Right. And I think that's the thing, right? So, like, it would be different if there were competitors to Apple and Google on their same devices. I know that sounds weird, but like, there's no third-party avenue ways to get things. I mean, unless you jailbreak your system, and go through like illegally, which I don't recommend doing. But like, typically that doesn't happen because all purchases need to be made directly through those stores. And a lot of times when these apps are linked to these stores, obviously the transactions go through the Apple Store. Well, it sounds like, these savings or whatever were coming directly from Epic, and I guess that's where the issue lies, because they weren't, because these companies weren't getting any of the kickback. But like, I see both sides, but as a consumer, as a gamer, this is a great thing. Like,
yeah,
but as a business person thinking about it from a business side, it's like, well, wait a minute. So I don't know. I see both, but I'm glad that Epic is willing to do all this and to file these lawsuits. My thing is, like, is it going to come out good in the end? Like, are you actually spending more money than? I mean, I realize they're making a lot of money, but are you spending more money than you would be making had you not fought it? So I don't know. That's a legal.
Well, I kind of think that's actually a great question, because I kind of think that Epic has to be falling on their own sword a little bit here, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, if you're losing access to what that article said, like almost 1 billion users or something crazy like that on the iStore, like, they're taking the gamble that we're saying, hey, we're trying to do a favor by you guys, and instead buy this stuff through us that bypasses Apple. I wonder what the numbers of the conversion rate are going to be. Like, how many people are, how much money are they going to lose out on now that they aren't on the Apple Store? It's a good question, but it's a question I don't think we have the answers to quite yet. But if it's kind of common sense to me. I don't know if you think the same thing, but like, if you had that many people that you're just you've lost in one fell swoop, like, I have to imagine that there has to be some kind of financial repercussion for Epic to that. But I think that you're like playing tech CEO Game of Thrones here. Like, you have to know, well, if
Exactly.
if like they knew, dude, they made a video about it, dude. They knew that as soon as they violated Apple's terms of service, that they were going to get kicked off the App Store, and then uh, basically they would have to adjust from there. So they knew
Right.
that they were going to start a campaign against Apple, and like I said earlier, this is a company that's big enough to be able to withstand this kind of blow. Whereas it's like
True.
they kind of are, if they are taking the fall, then they are taking the fall for the little guy. Because yeah, while they might be able to afford it, like I said, if this ruling ends up going in favor of Epic, then they just saved money for everyone else that's on that same app store.
Right. And I think that's ultimately the thing, right? So, I mean, even if they do fail, like I don't know what exactly the repercussions would be, but just the movement alone, I think, is enough to start a conversation in terms of what is considered fair, and how much these conglomerates really have a stranglehold on the market. So, and truthfully, the only free platform in the world is a PC, right? Because you can put your program out there for no cost and through no middleman of any kind. PC is always the way to go, right? So when you start dealing with consoles and mobile devices, you have to deal with the companies that own those consoles and mobile devices. So
Right.
I don't know. It's going to start an interesting conversation all the way around the board, I think, which will probably end up being a good thing, even if this case in particular doesn't turn out well for them. The conversation will get started, and that's the key thing.
It will get started, and it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. And
Definitely.
inevitably, that we're reporting on this now, but you also have to think. I mean, we're not going to have a ruling on this for forever. This is going to take
For
a long
years,
time
yeah.
for us to know something, for us to kind of understand what the ramifications of this are actually going to be. So, I do think it is a step in the right direction. Again, like, it really doesn't mean much for fans. I mean, yeah, if you're a Fortnite fan, you get some savings, and it shouldn't be anything for you to just go through the Fortnite store to get what you otherwise would have gotten through the App Store.
Right.
But I don't know. I do think this is a good move, and it's a move that I do think needs to be made. And ultimately, if this ends up going correctly, then it should save a lot of people money down the road who don't have to pay Apple and Google these ridiculous sums of money. But Jeffrey, let's move on to our next topic, because we had an interesting one here, and you and I
Yeah.
have been talking about the console war for a long time now, and what it means and going forward, and who has the best games, the first party titles, third party titles, and a conversation that we haven't really had as much is the graphical capabilities of both consoles. Now, you and I have
Yep.
been pretty much very, very heavily on the side of Sony in saying that they have a better slate of games on launch for their new console. And I even went as far as to say that I think that their launch lineup was enough for them to justify whatever the price would be, even if they did end up being more than Xbox Series X. But we have some news here, and it's news that right now, let's actually say that it's just rumors. This is all speculated, and this is from one source. But we did get some news here nonetheless. And it says a new PS5 report has PlayStation fans worried about the allegedly underpowered console. According to a new report, not only will the PS5 be more expensive than the Xbox Series X, but its lack of power in comparison to the Xbox console is reportedly causing developers headaches. More specifically, the console is apparently having troubles running games at 4K. The report comes way of industry insider leaker Dusk Gollum, who claims they've heard that not only does Microsoft have the more powerful console with the Xbox Series X, but the cheaper console. The insider doesn't divulge any specifics about the price of either the next-gen machine, nor do they specify how much cheaper the Xbox Series X will be, but they do warn PlayStation fans need to prepare themselves for the news. So these are his quotes verbatim. People should get ready for the reality, or for the really real possibility that the PS5 is going to end up being more expensive between the two, the more expensive console between the two. I'm trying not to say much here, as I was asked not to, but prepare yourself. This puts Xbox Series X in a position where it will be a less expensive and more powerful console. Use Resident Evil 8 as an example, but I've heard from other developers that PS5 struggles with 4K games in particular, so you'll see a lot of fake 4K. That doesn't matter to some, but get ready for that too. Xbox Series X doesn't have the same problem. So, this is an interesting one, Jeffrey, because I feel like you and I have talked about this in our praise of Sony and their games and what they're bringing to the customer. You and I have been honest and said, according to every report that we've seen, the Xbox Series X is the more powerful of the two consoles.
Yeah.
How much does this matter to you? And ultimately, do you think that this is going to hurt Sony? Does this change the way that you feel about this console war going forward? And how much of a big deal is this for Microsoft?
For me, it's not a big deal at all. Because, first of all, the PlayStation has always been underpowered when compared to the Microsoft consoles throughout the generations. The Xbox was more powerful than the PlayStation 1. The Xbox 360 was more powerful than the PS3. And they've always been more powerful, but in the end, that doesn't matter. If you don't have the games, and everybody's talking about 4K. Look, I know everybody and their mother probably has a 4K television right about now. I do not. Okay, I have a 1080p, a standard 1080p thing. Well, it's not standard.
I feel like you might be surprised how many people don't have 4K televisions. But yeah, no, go ahead.
Mean, I don't even own a PlayStation 4 Pro, right? I got the basic model. It's and that's kind of the thing, right? Now 4K is starting to get more standard. They're coming down in price a lot and all that good stuff. But it's kind of like how high definition was at the start of, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. It's like, yes, it was nice to have it and it was a nice jump, but not everybody had it, at the very start. At least I didn't. So it's, to me, graphics have never been a thing. Like, one of my favorite consoles is the Nintendo Switch, for Christ's sake. And, they're not that powerful either. It comes down to the games for me. And I still think Sony has that in terms of, how successful they're going to be. But, I mean, graphics are nice, too. And yes, it would be nice to have, the most powerful console ever. But I don't think that's a necessity to stay in the game right now. What do you think?
And you remember back when, I always kind of harken back to one of the biggest battles between Sony and Microsoft, and that was the Xbox 360 and the PS3. And I remember at that time, Xbox did a great thing because they released earlier than the PlayStation 3 did, and it had, it had a bunch of games that had already come out. But the weird, interesting dynamic is that Sony was a more expensive console, and it was because it was more powerful. So that was always if I'm going to get a game, I'm going to get it on PS3 instead of Xbox because it's going to look better. And I think that it's similar to that. Instead, now you're going to be paying more for that console. Now, I said on a previous show, I think Sony should just be fine coming out saying, hey, we're going to have the better games. We're going to have more experiences for you to be able to play through. So, yeah, put out the price, and if they are more expensive, so be it. You have more bang for your buck. I do think that the conversation does change, though. When now you're talking about the PlayStation 5 is actually holding developers back. You know what I'm saying? Because they're trying to make... So, especially if you're making a cross-platform video game, which most of these developers are. A lot of these titles are going to be on Xbox Series X, and they're going to be on PlayStation 5. So, if you're having to then have like a whole nother part of your development cycle that is dedicated towards optimizing these video games to look good on PlayStation 5, and it's like a whole nother process in and of its own, like then it's like you're costing people time and money if the console isn't powerful enough. Like, I mean, this doesn't really change my thoughts and feelings on what console I'd rather have coming out, but it does, you know, it does make me question Sony and really the whole process in making a console and choosing what you are going to put in it and how much you're going to sell it for, all the ins and outs of this. Because if you're Sony, I mean, you know 4K is going to be the next thing. Why would you not be as technologically advanced as you can going into this new console cycle, which kind of has me believing that this is something of a calculated move from Sony. Like, maybe they're okay with and willing to be the less powerful console as long as their games are fun and more exciting and they have better first-party platform titles, you know? I think that they've known this for a while, but I think maybe, and again, none of this has been confirmed, and this is just one source and one rumor, but I do think that this, you know, maybe they kind of made a false move if they're already having issues of developers saying this console really isn't powerful enough to do what we want to do.
Yeah, I see your point, but then I remember the early days of the PlayStation 3, and something very similar happened there. Developers were having a lot of trouble programming for the PlayStation 3 because of its ridiculous, I think it was the OS system that the PS3 ran on that was giving them trouble. Now, this is a little bit different because it's graphical and it's hardware, but my thing is, like, this kind of stuff has happened before, and it's just a matter of them having enough time with it, because that's the thing. You go in there and you expect all the systems to be the same. Well, they're not. Whether they're running a different OS or they have slightly different hardware, it's just having enough time to be comfortable enough with the hardware to work with it. And I think, I hate to say it, but I think developers are kind of freaking out over nothing here. Not that it won't be more difficult or more challenging, but just that they need time. And they need to understand the specifications of these consoles, because think about, you know, early gen games compared to like later gen games, right? Like, the early gen games never look good and they never feel good because people are just starting to work with the system, you know. Whereas by the end of the consoles, you have shit like, you know, God of War running on a base PS4 without it chugging along, and I'm like, how is that even possible? You know, it's the same situation here. I think they just need time to work with the console, and then it'll be fine. But I mean, this kind of stuff happens whenever you move into new territory. So no, I'm not really worried about it. If it's a slight graphical downgrade, so be it. You know, it's not my thing. So, no, I'm not worried about it.
You know what it kind of felt like, man? It kind of felt like a girlfriend, like, talking how great her new boyfriend is. You know, it's like it almost seems like there was some feelings there. Oh, Xbox is way bigger, way better. You know, and again, I don't know. I know everyone kind of has their own implicit biases, and we've kind of
Right.
talked how both you and I are, you know, we've been lifelong PlayStation players, and that probably isn't going to change anytime soon. I mean, if I have a good opportunity to pick up an Xbox, I'm sure I will. But I might just play games on my PC that I already have. So,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
so again, it's you're giving and taking. There are going to be pluses and minuses to both of these consoles, and I do think ultimately that is a good thing because it does give people the choice. People are going to be able to weigh, you know, how important is this to them. You know, maybe this actually incentivizes people to wait a little bit. So I want, you know, for example, I'm still going to be able to play my PS4. I can still run all the apps. I'll still be able to play certain games like, you know, whatever it is. If you're a Fortnite player, there's, you know, if the primary games that you're playing are like Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite, you know, you might not really have an incentive to buy either of these consoles until you get more information. And, you know, maybe players are going to want to see some graphics comparison videos and see how much better one console looks versus the other. That wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to me. I'm just, this is kind of a developing story. It has to be, but I am interested in seeing if other developers have these complaints, and if other
Right.
people are going to continue to say the same things, because then I think it definitely could have an impact on Sony. And another thing I think would impact them too is what's the price difference gonna be? How much
Right.
are the okay? I've said that I think that Sony justifiably could be worth a little bit more, and that would be fine. The question is how much more?
Right.
Is it worth $60 more, $100 more, $150 more? Like, what are we talking about? You know?
I'm thinking, and you know, this is just going by the tone of the article itself, but I'm thinking at least the way they're sounding, I'm thinking like $200 more than Xbox. I don't know if that's going to be a viable thing. Like if they do that, no, I could be like reading too much into it or inferring too much. But I mean, if it's going to be a $200 difference, then maybe I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, we
you
might be
know?
having some different conversations
You
if
know?
it ends up
So-
being like a crazy amount more than the Xbox. But again, that's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, you know. And if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle. So, you know, again, a lot of this, it's just, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it too, because it's like, it's still so early on, and these, and kind of like you said, you know, through the midway of PlayStation 3 or whatever, you had these games that were incredible once people actually had the time to work with and play with the technology. And keep in mind the last PlayStation press conference that we did, the last game that it showed, I forget the name. It was like the high fantasy hack and slash game.
Godfall.
Yeah, Godfall. So they even said that they were playing that on a dev kit. So it makes me wonder, well, okay, whoever is saying this, what are, you know, whoever's coming up with these assessments, what are they looking at this on? Is it a dev kit? Is it an official console?
Right.
Are they just not, do they not know how to get as much out of the PlayStation as, you know, they would if they had a little more time with the technology? I don't know. There's a lot of questions to this that it's just kind of impossible to know yet.
Yeah, and I mean, Microsoft has the benefit, and they had this benefit with the 360 as well. Their operating system is compatible with each other to a certain extent. So I remember in our game development class, for example, I forget what program we were using, but my teacher told me to bring in an Xbox controller because we were designing something on PC, and the Xbox controller was like able to plug in there, and then we were able to control it via, a controller. So, Xbox and Microsoft, they have the ability to kind of, I don't want to say cross-platform things, but it's a lot easier because they generally run on the same code as the PC does. Whereas, Sony's kind of its own thing. So, that's something to consider too. Sony is a more whatever system, they're a more foreign entity. So, of course, more time has to be taken to learn the ins and outs of the system. So, whether that's a good or bad thing, is yet to be seen. But it's something that's always been the case. So, it's just something to keep in the back of your head, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also want to say that I heard that we will be getting another press conference for both PlayStation and Xbox before their consoles release, and that they do intend on showing off more. Sony, obviously they're not going to comment about this.
No.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like that. There's no reason to even answer any of it. Like, what are they gonna say? You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna say no, it's bullshit, or not say anything at all. Because why would they go and be like, yeah, it's true. Our console does kind of struggle a little bit. Like, man, fuck off. Like that's
who's actually gonna say that?
Yeah, no one's gonna say that at all. So
I
don't know. That is kind of crazy. That we're even talking about this, but yeah, I don't know. I do think I wish that there was more access to information about these kinds of things. So like when I say like basically what goes into developing a console, how do you decide what technologies and what ROMs and teraflop hard drives and all this shit, like how do you decide what to put in a video game console to make it relevant for the next 4 or 5 years? You know what I mean? Like that's I would be interested in knowing that, what decisions are made in favor of that, because I think it would be relevant too. Also in 2020, where technology is moving at a crazy pace. So another thing to wonder is how long are these consoles going to be relevant? Like when they're putting out so much better technology that these custom-made PCs are going to have access to, then it's like, is it even worth it anymore to keep upgrading your console when you have a PC that could do more or better than that console ever could? Also, if you're going to have to buy another one sooner than you did your previous one. So it's been, about a 4 or 5 year, maybe a little more. When did the PlayStation 4 come out?
Oh, buddy. Hang on.
Was it 2013? 12 or 13, maybe?
For release. Hang on. My fingers don't move as fast as they used to. 2013, November 15th of 2013.
So it'll be 7 years.
And here's something else to keep in mind, right? Like you were saying, and technically, these consoles had an upgrade. We had the PS4 Pro and the Xbox, what was it? Xbox One X?
Yeah.
Was it? So
Xbox One X, Xbox Series X, same.
But that's my thing, though. Like, now the regular consoles, are they even worth it? Because 2-3 years down the line, they may end up releasing a beefed up version that can do, more, which kind of devalues the whole thing. I mean, the whole point of buying a console was so you had a steady investment for, years, instead of a PC where you have to feel like you have to upgrade every 3 months or so.
Right.
And truthfully, the PS5, from all this technical crap I'm looking at, which I'm not 100% about, but generally speaking, the PS5 is going to be about as powerful as high rig PCs are right now. So, but that makes me wonder, like, is it going to be viable 2 years down the line, even? Because at the breakneck speed that PCs go, I don't know, man. This whole thing is kind of off.
It is, and it kind of gets back to another conversation with this whole Sony versus Microsoft thing. Is it Sony? I know that in order to play the next God of War or Last of Us or whatever the hell it is, I have to have a Sony PlayStation.
Yeah.
I have to. Whereas whatever cool new shit comes out for Xbox, I'm probably going to be able to play it on my PC.
Right.
So
right.
it's like Sony has something there that Microsoft doesn't. And,
That's true.
And they have the ability to have exclusives that you need to go to Sony for. So for right now, that benefits them. Again, I don't know. I just don't know how long this is going to continue to go for. But it'll be interesting, man. These next few months are going to get weird. I mean, we're going to have more games to talk about, but we're also going to have how we handle a lot of, these news stories that are going to be coming very soon. So, which is the more powerful console? What's the release date for any of them? We just don't know that right now. We don't have that information right now. So,
well, the good news is that both sides have pretty much confirmed that they will continue to support the current gen consoles. Sony has said for at least a year. So, like you were saying, you don't necessarily have to upgrade to the biggest and best thing right away. So if you want to take that time to kind of make a decision for yourself, it's there. Unfortunately, I've gone pretty much rogue from what I normally do, and I've decided that I'm going to get a next-gen console as soon as I can. Because every year, with every console generation, I am at least about 2.5 to 3 years behind. So I usually don't buy them until a few years down the line, and then I end up missing out on half of the shit because I don't get a chance to play it. So, for some ungodly reason, this time I have decided to purchase one ASAP. So
okay.
Whether that's a good or a bad decision.
What went behind the decision making on that idea? Why is this the time to do that?
Because, well, frankly, because I actually had the money this time.
Okay.
Whereas before I always had to save up after the fact.
Yeah.
As far as my finances go, as long as I don't do anything ridiculously stupid, I should have enough regardless of what the price point is.
And you're like, give me some time because I might.
Well, it depends. It depends because I mean, if it is a $700 console, which God I hope not, I might be eating my own word. Well, actually, I'd still have enough regardless, but that would be a hefty,
yeah, dude, that's a hit
to my wallet here.
And it's also a hit to the wallet at a time when, like, we're in the midst of a worldwide economic recession because people don't have fucking jobs. It's like,
I know.
Yeah, man. And I think that maybe we haven't talked about that really either. I try not to talk about COVID pandemic shit because when it comes to podcasting, like, people are trying to get away from it. But I do wonder what effect that's also having on these decisions about price point. Because, people are, they have less money right now. Which, by the way, is where I give kudos to Microsoft. The fact that you're going to be able to pay for your Game Pass and every game that they did show is going to be available on Game Pass. Like, that's a bang for your buck type of scenario. So, again, you and I have been very heavily kind of on the side of Sony. But, I mean, you and I can both admit that there are pluses and minuses to both of them. And there are legitimate things that Microsoft is doing very well, and I think that they are trying to give people bang for their buck. Keep in mind, we're talking about Microsoft here, one of the biggest companies in the world, and they are really trying to kind of help people's wallet right now. And I don't know if Sony is going to have that same kind of ability to kind of read the room and know how much is egregious or not, because we have to keep in mind they are a Japanese company, and yes, they do have American markets and departments. I understand all that, but I do think that it could more easily be on them to be a little more tone deaf when it comes to a lot of these situations, and they might not understand that a crazy expensive price tag right now is not a good look for people who are trying to pay rent and put food on their table.
Definitely. I do think it's a cultural thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I don't have anything more to add to that, but it definitely, it very well could be something like that. I'm telling you, man, Sony needs to get their shit together regardless, though, because the PlayStation Plus program that we have right now and the games that we get every month are
dog shit. Just say it. Just dog shit. They fucking suck. You don't want to play them.
They are terrible, right? With the exception of a few that get released down the line. And I mean, there are some that, end up being really great games, but they're years old, right? So, like, yeah, Uncharted 4 is great, but I bought it when it first came out, but all these, like, indie things and fucking Fall Guys, which is now big for some fucking reason I don't understand.
Yeah, it's like taking it's the new Fortnite. Everyone's playing Fall Guys.
I'm just like, I don't get it, man. I don't get where their head is at right now. And if they don't make some decisions about the PlayStation Store and about how all that stuff is handled, they recently did fix something rather stupid that I did want to bring up very quickly. We don't even have to bring up an article for this, but you know how on the PlayStation Plus, like, they'll give you the free game, right? But it's only free as long as you have the service, right? So, like, if you go off PlayStation Plus, you don't have it anymore. Or like, if the game is on sale, but you already own it through PlayStation Plus, they won't let you take advantage of the sale. Well, now they let you do that. So if you actually liked the game, God forbid, that they put on the system, you could buy it at a reduced price compared to, what you would pay normally. So that is one tiny thing. But, like, if you don't make the games worth it, then what the hell?
Yeah.
They seriously need to come up with a better system, because if Xbox is, basically essentially giving these games away, is the way I look at it, for the price that they're offering. Like, Sony needs to do something, because
again, I also feel like it's due to circumstances too. I feel like Sony can afford to not necessarily do so much, whereas Microsoft kind of has to.
True.
And I feel like there is a little bit of that too. But again, I also don't want to take credit away from Microsoft for genuinely trying to help people's pockets. I'm not mad at them for that. Kudos to them. Power to them. But yeah, Jeffrey, I think we just did another show.
Yeah, man, I think so.
We did it. We're on episode 19, so next week it's going to be our 20th episode, man.
The big 2-0.
Yeah, the big 2-0
already.
No shit, right? We're moving on up, folks.
Yeah.
We're doing some big time shit. But hey, man, Jeffrey, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners where they can find you and pick your brain.
So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at JeffroRed, so JeffroRed. Whether you want to talk about video games or just life in general, or you need a budget psychologist, I'm your guy. Just hit me up on Twitter.
Jeffrey Redmond, ladies and gentlemen, a master of all, a jack of all trades, they say. But my name is Cody Lashley. You can find me on Twitter at CodyLac, CodyLac. I just recently did my buddy's podcast last night, the Super Civil Servants podcast. I talked a little bit about the Umbrella Academy Season 1 and 2. You can check that out if you like. Every Tuesday night, I'm on the Carolina Cat Chronicles podcast. Every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And as always, I do this podcast with my partner in crime, Jeffrey Redmond, every Saturday, 4 p.m. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing here on the Cripple Connection podcast. My name is Cody Thomas Lashley, and until next time, peace and love.
Peace, guys.